Before I start my presentation, let me introduce myself. I am Dereje Dinafeye, lecturer of Public Administration Development Management at Bonga University at Sabah, Ethiopia. Before starts my presentation, I want to thank Tomorrow People organizations offered me to present the paper. My paper titled Challenge Faced to Democracy in Ethiopia. The outline of my presentation contains two parts. Part 1, under Part 1, background of the study, objective of the research and the research methodology is included. Under Part 2, result discussion and the conclusion is. Under Part 1's background of the study, Ethiopia came to existence before 3000 before Christ. In its emergence, Ethiopia has its own history. The most bold history was known always. Ethiopia built based on non-equality of the ethics or nations. That is through the military strength and the expansion of the military. Up to 20th century, this struggle occurred. After the 20th century again, the struggles around 1960s and 70s was very known struggles among the ethnics. At the end of 1974, the Derg regimes overthrown the Haile Selassie and came to power. Similarly, the struggle continued only through the mouth of the gun, and at the same way, Derg regimes ended 1991 and the Ethiopian People Revolution Democratic Front or EPRDF came to power by force. And this, the most very known, always very difficult is destroy the life of the millions of the people, and the country. This was always destroyed by the military force or struggles or conflict among the political parties. This leads the country very poorest country for the world or bigger country in the world. In 1991, new chapter opened. That was new democratic systems opened. Since 1991, Ethiopia maintained democratic friendship constitutions focused on self-administration, rule of law, a strong commitment of peace and democratic order. However, democratic systems came to challenge by different challenges. The first challenge what faced Ethiopia was recurrent conflict. Recurrent conflict, lack of trust, power transfer or power grabbing, weakness of democratic institution, corruption, media restriction. These were very, very difficult challenges still now facing the country. Despite that, country can install or shortcoming or from the problems, the country can establish the advanced multi-party system, decentralization structure, creating an institution and human rights. At the end 2091, national dialogue was established in Ethiopia. Objective of the study 1.2, there are general objective and the specific objective. Under general objective, let's examine the major challenge democratic system in Ethiopia. Specifically, objective, evaluate the current dynamics of the challenge facing democratic system in Ethiopia, the root cause of challenge faced democracy in Ethiopia, and at the third, influence of the current conflicts and its actor distracting the system in Ethiopia. The next 1.3 is methodology I used. Methodology, what I've used, qualitative research methodology. The dialects and the contents what I have used totally based on the 1991 Constitution of Ethiopia, and the method what I was used was the panel method to state this research. Part 2, result and discussion. Following the harsh dictator system, Dergi in Ethiopia, new system democracy examined in theory and practice post 1991. The Ethiopian People Liberation Democratic overthrew the dictatorship and took power. Hence, EPRDF commitment to declare Universal Declaration human rights, particularly freedom of expression, association, assembly, as well as freedom to freely engage in political activity. In implementation, there was many challenges which faced the Ethiopia. These are the following challenges which faced Ethiopian democratic process since adoption of the FDRE constitution. One is recurrent conflict. Conflicts are very dominant in both developing and developing country, or in both the developing nation and the developing country. But the frequency of the conflict is made difference one country from another. Ethiopia is a country which one or very known country which always experienced recurrent conflict for the century. Ethiopia has been a frequent war, especially because of the power struggle among the politician and political party. The conflict among Tigray People Liberation Front and the Federal Democratic of Ethiopia was one indicator for a power struggle among the political parties. Especially, Ethiopia was in violent conflicts within very known 2022 up to 2023 still now. People always exposed to the various problems because of the conflict, and also around 6,000 civilians were killed among the conflict between Tigray People Liberation Front and the Ethiopian government. That started from 2020 up to 2022. A report presented for the House of People Representative of Ethiopia by official of military finance revealed that 1/3 of the total population in the regional states, especially northern part, damage caused by war amount $22 billion or 20.4% of the GDP of the country damaged by this war, while economic losses amount $6 billion or 5.5% of the GDP damaged by the war among the TPLF and the central government of Ethiopia. There were many reasons behind 2022-20 war in northern Ethiopia. The sixth national election in 22 challenged by spread COVID-19, which postponed to 2021 June by ruling party always as immediate cause for the conflict among TPLF and the central government. However, as Berhe Assegle stated, recurrent conflict in Ethiopia always caused by historical narrative, power struggle, land ownership, and political interests. After years, conflict of TPLF with the government has been reconciled through the African United Nations at Pretoria, South Africa. Others, especially opposing party, Oromo Liberation Front, Ogaden Liberation Front, Amara Regime Fano, still in fighting by the gun. So this is the major shake-up or the major difficulties for the democracy or for the peace of Ethiopia. The next point is weakness of the ruling party. This is another challenge of democratization process in Ethiopia. Weakness parties of the ruling parties has its own great position for the failure of democracy in Ethiopia. Historically, no Ethiopian rulers voluntarily resigned from the office. Most of them died in the office. Ethiopia adopted democracy in 1991, but failed to implement free, fair, and predict election. All the past 5 elections, that means from the 1991 up to 2016 election in Ethiopia were non-free and fair elections. However, 2021 Ethiopia election was that election non-competitive because of the component parties or the party which opposed the party resigned themselves from that election. This is the major difficult what makes it. As a professor Christopher Karl stated that the Ethiopian democracy challenged by always by the power, that is without election. As 2022 country report on human rights practice in Ethiopia, election took place against background of instability. As known, today in Ethiopia is a conflict. One behind of this conflict, or one reason behind of this conflict, was the election in 2021. That's non-competitive election, or most part of opposed party resigned themselves from this election. This is makes the country challenged by the conflict. The armed rebel force like Oromo Liberation Army, Ogaden Liberation Army, were in fights by coordination with TPLF and still in fighting with central government. Because of that, from Oromia and the Somalia region, still today, their lands and their property is destroyed by these forces because of they are fighting with the government. When they fight with the government, the challenge or the society's property is damaged and their lives always losing through the day life. Internet prosperity parties still in challenges. There are internal problems in the Prosperity Party or the ruling party today. Sometimes the Amara Prosperity always communicates against that Oromo Prosperity, vice versa, and also Benishangul Prosperity against that Amara. So there is internal problems among the Prosperity Party or ruling party. This is another weakness of the ruling party, which makes challenge democracy in Ethiopia. Political entrepreneurs is another challenge or another reason behind of the conflict in Ethiopia. Ethnic conflicts are not always caused or reason behind of diversity, but hidden interest of political enterprise is the major problem of the conflict. In Ethiopia, political instability always caused by politicization of the ethnicity by self-political leaders. Because of political interest of this group or the elite groups not common, or all political parties in Ethiopia, because of they are not agreed, they have no the common interest, this always create disagreements among the political interests. These political groups always groups the society or the community and always move to the conflict. In Ethiopia, ordinary people like has no awareness about the political. Because of this, always the political trends, unity of the country always left in the hand of the political leader. Most of the time, political issue twisted by three nations: Oromo nations, Amara, and Tigray. As a result, political interest of the politicians and their competition of the power, therefore, destabilized the stability of the country. Because of individuals within one party always insult each other or disagree each other, this leads to disintegrity or always has no integrity among the society. Therefore, political enterprise always the main cause for the conflict raised in Ethiopia. The first point is weakness of democratic institution. Ethiopia has an institution like National Election Board, judicial system, but there is a lack of effectiveness or there is a problem of neutral body. There is a lack of effectiveness and responsibility for these institutions. There is lack of transparency, accountability from this institution. This institution always not neutral from the politicians or from the ruling party. This is always one reason for challenge for democracy in Ethiopia. Media is another important oxygen for the democracy. However, Ethiopian government restricts, cut off the internet, block the social media, especially around the conflict zone. As the 2022 country report on human rights government has always reported, the Ethiopian government always blocks the social media. On another side, media polarization prevailed or always known, flourished. Both private public media has its own impartiality, but in Ethiopia, conflicts past 4 years has been aggravated by social media. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook and Twitter always magnify the stir up the conflict by posting photo, false photo, as unknown true photo. That's always aggravated the social media, which always as fuels for the conflict for 4 years in Ethiopian conflict. In this way, promised development media, declaration of freedom, expression under Article 29 of the Constitution failed to contribute for realization, democratization in Ethiopia. So there is a social shortage of problem of democracy, there is restriction, and also there is a polarization of the media in Ethiopia. Another point is corruption. Corruption is one distortion, ineffective resource, and also policy in Ethiopia. Due to weakness of the ruling party, always enforcement of the law or weakness of enforcement of the law, corruption is widespread in the country. In his speech, Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed confirmed corruption in the country becomes so very by speed widespread in the country, especially government employees and officials very involved in the corruption. This is one reason behind of the conflict. To control, because of the weakness of the ruling government or behind the enforcement of the law, corruption is always widespread, and also the reason for conflicts or weakness of democracy in Ethiopia. Therefore, corruption is one reason behind the challenge of democratization in Ethiopia. The next 7-point structural challenge. In history of Ethiopia, as Tarafa Asafa stated or explained, nation building of Ethiopia based on one language, that is Amharic. This is and also focused on one religion, Orthodox. This is create great challenge today to make arrangement, especially on federal government. There is a very great challenge among the ethnicities because of in the previous government there is only focus on one language, one religion. To structure today the government of the Ethiopia, this is a great challenge in the country to make arrangement. The next is challenge of insurgency. Challenge of insurgency is another important, as a Professor Christopher Cullen stated, confirmed, occasionally many of their friends' colleagues died before the victory. Because of this, sometimes the party which came to the power always has no interest to come the power through the election. This is, as example, Ethiopian People Liberation Democratic was insurgency, overthrew the Derby and came to the power through the force. So it cannot be denied. Ethiopia came to the power, came to the experience of democracy by imperative. But the challenge of this party is still, this party cannot be effectively proceed the election start from 1991 up to 2023. So this is the failure of this party. The next point is source of the hope. Source of the hope. Today, the Ethiopia has its own hope to continue the democratic system. One is multi-party politics. As Professor Marara stated in 2003, Ethiopia today under the multi-party system that is established in 1991 constitution. So this is one important source, one important hope to continue as one source to continue the democracy and the country. The next point is introduction to decentralization. Decentralization again, it's very important for the Ethiopia. 1995 FDR Constitution Article 39 and 55 embodied the process of democratization and decentralization. This is another important point because under this constitution, there is a hope of plurality of the people within the Ethiopian border in culture, ethnicity, and language. If the government's influence to accomplish this important article or decentralization, in the future there is a hope of democratization in Ethiopia, and the conflict today, what happened among the political party, can be solved by this important source. The next source or hope of the country is creating an institution for democracy and human rights. Ethiopia established the major political institution, human rights organization, democratic reforms at 1991, like national election board. This is very important for the election. If there is election, if there is free, fair election in the country, there will be the democracy in the future. Therefore, as one of, they are very important institution, very important commission to continue the democracy in our country. The next point is national dialogue. National dialogue is very popular tool for solve the conflict resolution, especially political transformation. At the end of 2021, Ethiopia Parliament passed the law establishing National Commission for Dialogue. Because today Ethiopia is in the high conflict or ethnic conflict, especially at this moment, it comes to the ethnic conflict. To solve this serious problem among the society, national dialogue is very important, so it can be one tool in Ethiopia to solve the conflict found in our country. At the end, we can see the conclusion. Ethiopia today in political transformation since 1991. That is focus on pluralism, decentralization power. That is the Constitution 1995 everybody established this important pluralism and political transformation. Adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is one important hope for the future. However, there is a pro-democratization challenge in Ethiopia, which came from recurrent conflict among the political party, weakness of ruling party, democratic institutions resulting, additionally media, corruption, insurgency challenges which among the political party, and structural challenge which came from the first structure or which came from very difficult challenge. So this is the important challenges which can be solved. Despite that, today in Ethiopia, beginning of multi-party, decentralization of, and also creating democracy and human rights. Moreover, to overcome this challenge, finally, Ethiopia today, under the national dialogue, if the government and the political party agreed upon and solved by national dialogue, in the future, the Ethiopia can be under the umbrella of the democracy through the peace. I will thank you for your attention.